Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Diane Arnold joining us here once again from the Family Collective. Always a pleasure seeing you. How are you today?
Great, Jill. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Please introduce yourself to our listeners.
I am Diane Arnold. I am with the Family Collective, and we are a nonprofit that helps relationships overall. So if you have questions regarding thinking about getting married or being married and dealing with your relationship, we are there for you. We have a ton of resources.
Beautiful. How do we find you?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question, right? www.thefamilycollective.co. So thefamilycollective.co. You can go to our website, and that will lead you to all the online groups and the online materials and a bunch of articles that may help you with something you have going on.
Everything from give us some examples of the stuff that you help with.
Yeah, so online there is an entire premarital course that you can have a workbook and do as a group or do by yourself. You and your fiance. I think it's an 8 or 12-week sessions, and then there's the same thing for marriage. There are online groups that you can join. There's one starting up in August. And a lot of people like that for community. They just, sometimes it gets very isolated out there. So you're struggling with communication with a relationship, and it's great for the information. But I would say a lot of the couples, when they sign up, they're saying, I just need someone to walk this out with me. We've run into this wall, and the more vulnerable the couples get, and I'm not saying you have to be to get on there, but when they do, they're really getting, help from the other. We sit back and do not as much work as the other couples invest in each other. I have had them stay after when they find out and they're in the same community and say, hey, I'll help with your kids, so that you guys can do a date night or something like that. And then we do relationship work for individuals. So there's a lot of materials on that. And we have just been signed to do a book with a publishing company on, dealing with mental health and healing who you are, basically, so that you can, step into this next season in a much healthier way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. What did you want to talk about today? As always, I know it's always enlightening for us.
Yeah, well, first I was going to ask you, what have you been up to?
Well, kids are home for summer, right? So they're not in camp of any sort. So they've been taking advantage of the new pool. We got a pool, so that's exciting for the kids. Other than that, it's been the same old with kids. Nothing much. Sports, and we got football started. We're going to Great Wolf Lodge in Maryland next week. We're going to drive down from New York and try a different one out. So a little more vacation time. So yeah, things have been pretty good. Just the summer's blowing through though. Yeah, and like back to school already. It's like, oh no, I gotta do shopping.
I know everybody's already getting the ads and everything. That needs to be a whole podcast in itself. How do you deal with the stress of back to school and the change, what that's going to look like? So many people stayed home for a while, now it's, back to the reality of having to go back to the classrooms. And so I love the Great Wolf Lodge. We went once with the kids. That was fun.
Which location?
We were in, I think it was North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, they're all over the place. There's one in Pennsylvania that we go to often. It's about 2 hours away, but there's a new one that just opened up in Perryville, Maryland. It opened up in June, so I'm like, it's a 4.5-hour drive. Let's try it.
That's good. I bet the kids love it. That water park is amazing there.
Yeah, so that's exciting. What have you been doing?
Well, we've been in Minnesota,
Nice.
enjoying a little bit cooler weather and working from here, same thing, but different location, but it's been kind of nice to have a little change. It's been very hot where I am.
Oh,
So it's been great.
good, good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about dealing with communication, especially with your partner, and how to make that a little, um, you know, we live together sometimes, but we're not really together, if that makes sense to you. We don't touch base with each other. We really don't feel like we're invested. I mean, this happens to me in my own marriage, so it's got to happen. If it hasn't happened to anyone else out there, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm only speaking to myself, but it's sometimes difficult to stay connected. You know what I'm talking about?
I hear you.
You hear me? Yeah. Well, what are some, I would love if this was like an open mic and people could tell me some of the things that they've tried, but what are some of the things that work for you when you're trying to stay connected?
It's breathing. And my son is 6 and he does this thing with me. We go,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's 6 because I guess they do like yoga in school, I guess, like
Yeah.
for a little bit, like pre-K and then kindergarten. So we go in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yep.
Breathe.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm kind of a worry wart. I'm anxious. I'm all over the place. But the breathing does kind of slow me down a little bit.
That's
And
great. Yep. That's
that's
wonderful.
kind of it. What else do people do? Tell me how do you keep sane?
Well, um funny, but when you've been married as long as I have, and it wasn't all easy. So to remember to put some of these basic things back in to a relationship, um, we call it the 5 magic hours. John Gottman kind of established this many, many years ago. And it's just to do some basics to remember, to connect, because it's easier to connect. I always say it's easier to connect to the kids because they'll let you know. I mean, they're calling your name, right?
Mhm.
they, they tell you, but you sometimes won't tell your partner, where I'm feeling some distance, I'm missing you. So the first one is partings. So we say to be intentional about either when you're waking up in the morning, you look at the person next to you in bed and yeah, thank you, you're alive. We're here, and we're going to say, good morning, and remember that most likely we're separating. And I always say, even it's a rote question, is there something big going to happen for you today? Is there something I need to check in on? Is there something that I can even pray for? Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Just, just, and the reason why is because if there's a parting, there's a connecting. And so now I've got something that I can remember, about that person's day that I can check in on. And like I said, it seems rote, but a lot of times the couple's been waiting for that, like, yeah, let me tell you something that's big that's going to happen today. If I'm a nurse, I'm going to have this hectic schedule or something. So, that would be the first one. And then reunions, that would be at the end of that day. And I would say, if in the morning you've got a 10-minute, check in, in the evening, I would say that's a little bit longer, where I'm talking about, what happened with that moment that we even talked about, maybe the children, something going on with the house or work, but actually, making a point of saying, this is what happened during my day. And it's weird, but we can go through dinner and talk about the kids, like you said, the kids is sports, the kids is whatever, but not talk about our own days. So, those are two big ones. The third thing that I often talk with people about, and I had someone, that I saw many, many moons ago that did this the most amazing thing, that their spouse was in this high stress job and drove a motorcycle to work, of making it more high stress. But every evening she would put a note on his motorcycle. Every evening, and of course he looked forward to it, and then would figure out, a way to reciprocate with a text or something like that. And we just call that just plain old appreciation. If you, I don't know, maybe like Jill, maybe I'm just, talking to myself, but a lot of times the times you're texting your spouse is when it's a problem. Or your partner
Yeah, not just a, hey, how are you? I love you. You're right. It's usually when there's a problem.
right? Right. And so I'm like, so you're making a point of at least once a day, how's your day going? I miss you. Can't wait till you get home. I have things to tell you about, just connecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those three things. And then affection, okay, huge, right? We have to be intentional. And some of us don't like to be touched, and some of us love to be cuddled. And so for those that are not huge in this, we got to remember it's important to touch that isn't always exactly leading to sex, right? But to I don't know, you even put your arm around somebody, sit closer to them. Definitely, kissing. In fact, there's statistics out there that couples that kiss often and well, not just your obligatory kiss, are most connected. So that's an important thing to remember, if like, especially if you're the non-toucher, to go out of my way to say, I'm gonna give you a hug, and I'm gonna hold it a little longer than I'm comfortable.
Oh, yeah. Got
Right.
it. Okay.
Right. And then the fifth thing is to figure out how to intentionally have like some kind of a meal or a moment together. And if watching a movie works, for you, and you don't feel like you need to talk, I would say overall you need to talk. So, even if you're some couples, especially our younger couples, our Gen Zs, our millennials, they're all about, Netflix and everything, and and some sort of media. So, if that's how you like to connect, then spend some time talking about the movie, or going a little deeper about maybe the plot, or what it meant to you, or what it reminded you of. But something that's playful, not just the lists that you got done. I remember with my husband and I, when we had our marriage drama, and thinking back on our communication patterns, we would just talk about the lists.
Mm-hmm.
Did your kid get, did you get your kid to this? Do they need something? Is there something wrong with the house? Do you need to get a worker? And that seems like it makes sense, but it really gets really rote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that making sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But like things in life do get in the way, right? There's
And they're important, right? And they're important. It's not that they're not important. I'm saying, because I'm sure there's somebody out there going, well, what are you going to do with all that? The toilet's broken or something.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course you have to have time for that, but you have to have time to put a little playfulness back in the relationship, because that sometimes is what leaves, that ability to appreciate and laugh and, have an activity together. And most people, at least most people that I see as a marriage therapist, are constantly saying, well, that should come natural. And I'm like, well, it doesn't.
Nope.
Because we're human. It just doesn't. And so it's important to remember, to put these small things, back into your relationship. And if you've got a conflict, right? Of course, you may have a conflict. That's okay that you talk about that. It's just do that at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that morning time where you're connecting and you're maybe having a hug, and you're talking about, what's happening during each hour's days. And then you have that moment during the day where you connect and, you show a little appreciation that that person's still with you and alive and connected to you. And then to remember that when you do see them, to have a little affection, of some type, whatever's, comfortable for, the both of you. And then the checking in the evening. And I've had couples that call that one the 2 chairs. And the reason is for that is to make this potentially a different place than you do life. If everybody's running in, when you're in the kitchen or something like that, it may not be the best place for you to stay focused on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Makes sense.
So it's like, is there a room or, a place, a patio, a something where it gets to be a habit where we go out there, whatever time it is, and check in and connect, and we're not talking forever. We're talking, what they say for an excellent relationship is 20 minutes a day. Excellent relationship, 20 minutes a day. That means those of us that are struggling, we're doing less than that.
Wow.
Right? So, and of course that time needs to be without phones and computers and watches and iPads. And I often say, do your best to have it be without kids. And this is why. They need to see that you two are making your relationship a priority. If you want to teach a child, show them. So when they watch you putting each other first, they're learning how to be good couple, and they're learning how to be a good mom and dad, and you haven't said a word.
True.
Right? So a lot of people say, yeah, tell my 2-year-old that, my 3-year-old that. I'm like, no, you tell him. Distract him for 10 minutes with something, and you let them know, that mommy and daddy, need to have this time together to connect, and that it's a priority, and that we've made each other a priority.
Yep. Oh.
And I know a lot of people never saw that themselves, as kids. So I think it's really important when we talk about this to say, hey, you set the example. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. You can start at any time. Set an example for them to understand that I'm making this a priority. Not only will the person you're dealing with understand that, but the rest of the people in the family will as well.
Yeah. Oh, you got to do that. That's interesting because for someone like me, who this is the hard part, I've always been single, right? So I have two kids. And now if I go out on a date, my kids are really upset. Well, the older one, who's 8, the 6-year-old is like, fine, has a good time with the babysitter. The older one, why do you leave me? It's not fair. It's not right. And he gets angry because it's only been just us, the three of us. So, I've never prioritized time for anyone besides them. So starting
Right.
later in the game, trying to do that is not easy because then I feel bad for my son. I do, when I go out for a few hours, I feel like I'm hurting him, which psychologically I know I'm not, but I feel like I am because he's crying, he's upset. So it's how do you handle that? I mean, you still have to make the time, but how do you there's only so much I could say to say it's okay. Mommy needs her time, and it's mommy's. You like hanging out with your friends. I'm allowed to hang out with my friends, but it just seems it doesn't work. Or it hasn't
Right.
worked yet, maybe.
Right. So, in that case, getting to the bottom, your child's clearly scared of something like that potentially, that, if you've had a loss of a divorce, and I don't know that that's,
No, no, never had. Never
but
was
did they
married,
have
so
they have a loss of another parent or
well,
another,
no, I had the first one all by myself, so he doesn't have a father. And then the second one, he came in my life, and my friend is kind of like a father to him, so he sees him as a male figure role model. But we were never together, so he sees him every now and then, which is like once a week or so, which is good. But
yeah,
so he has like a male type of role model that's like a dad,
yeah,
but he's never had. So like it's really like me, him, and his brother. So it's kind of I don't
yeah.
know how that works with him. Also, the fact, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of,
good. Yeah, I would say, that it really feels to me that, like, what you're touching on is, I'm afraid that you're going to leave me.
hmm
And, that rather than it's an inclusive thing, we're bringing more people in. It's more fun when we have more people, like you said, with that, male figure, that they bring things to the table, mommy stays and they come versus, I get separated and now I'm not with you. That's what you need to shore up, when kids are afraid, really afraid, because it's most of the time 100% about them. That's how their brain
yeah,
works, you know, that I'm going to lose you to this person rather than this person can make enjoyment, better. So including them in the process is usually a huge factor. Obviously, they can't go on the date with him, but
all the
including,
time, but they
yeah,
should be. That's, yeah, that's what I also have to, express to the person I'm dating that, we need to do Dave and Buster's, we need to do
yes,
movies, we need to do fun stuff with
yes,
them so they
yes,
don't feel excluded. Yes.
yes. Because when you're dating a single mom or a single dad, you're dating the family.
hmm
Right. And so, it will feel super abandonment, to a child that thinks they're going to lose that, other parent to this person. So, my, that's my biggest thing is, you know, possibly do date nights with your children,
hmm
so that they know that they get a special time with you as well. This person gets special time with you and they get a special time with you. And then also, like I said, in that case, I think I would be super inclusive, of the process just because of their age.
Yeah.
They're a little bit, teenager, they'll understand it a little more, younger, it probably doesn't phase them as much. You're hitting that upper grade school, junior high, and that is the age where, they don't have the full understanding of what's happening. So,
Got it.
yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a very real thing. And, I get it, and it's happening to a lot of people out there, but I always tell people, think of it as inclusive.
Mhm. Well, it all to be honest with you, it makes me not want to date because it's hard to find someone that's understanding of those things. And everyone says it's okay, it's okay. And then like I'm like, hey, I'm a single mom. I don't have much time to give, and my family comes first, my children come first, I come first. So there's not much time for you. I'm going to be honest. And then, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And then after a few months, it's like, wow, you really have no time for me. And I'm like, okay, I've told you this. It's not that I
Yeah.
never put it out there right away. And to be honest, and then it's like, wow, you really don't have time. I said,
Yeah.
I don't. And no offense, I come first and then my kids. It has to be. So if someone wants to come in and be number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not an easy feat. No one wants to be someone's number 4. And it doesn't sound nice, but I try to be very realistic about it, where
Yeah.
that's the kind of the chain of command. And so
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have to give in a relationship, but people always try and they say, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they don't get it. So it leaves me frustrated, but it leaves me just wanting to be single, which is not a bad thing for now. I'm raising my kids, but.
And, there are the seasons, Jill. There 100% are the seasons. Like I said, when your kids get a little teenagers, they will have a little more understanding, of what's happening. But because eventually this person won't be number 4,
Yeah,
in fact,
exactly.
they will need to be, number
Bumped
2.
up to number 2.
Yeah,
Yay, that's
exactly.
possible.
Yes, exactly. And so then if the kids are inclusive in the process, if we keep doing some broadcasts, we should talk about step parenting. That's some amazing material. We have amazing material on the website on that, because it's a real thing, and what that looks like, and how you do date well, or try to date well. You can never, outguess kids, but and what that process looks like, because it's important.
Yeah.
It's hard. I hear you.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, thanks for being here. We're out of time. What the heck?
I know.
All right, Diane. Remind us of how we can reach out to you, and what states, what countries, worldwide.
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, I am a licensed counselor, but I'm in the state of South Carolina. So, you would need to be in my state to be able to see me. However, there's a lot of mental health material online, on podcasts, on social media, and definitely on our website that may be of help to you. So we would love to share that with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. You have
thefamilycollective.co. I'm going to Jill.
I got it. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. Okay. We'll talk later. Thank you. Bye-bye, hon.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.